Legislation to allow handguns to be carried without a permit appears poised to pass after last-minute maneuvering by Indiana legislators. Indiana may soon join 21 other states which have adopted similar measures. As Brock Turner reports, one major problem worries law enforcement officers, even those in favor of permitless carry.
For detectives Hadley, Goodman, and Chris Egan, no day is normal. They routinely see the impact of gun violence on their community.
We could go from a very tragic accident, then the next run that we go to could be, a person with a gun that we have to deal with, it's barricaded in a house.
They're partners on the Viper unit for Evansville's police department. Goodman and Egan target organized crime and gang violence, which results in significantly different challenges than many of their peers in law enforcement. That's one of the reasons they spent hours waiting to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee last week.
There are going to be more people carrying more firearms, and there's going to be less opportunity, fewer tools for us to be able to identify who is proper, who is improper.
The debate has been both ongoing and contentious.
That suggests right now we're infringing on someone's constitutional rights, and otherwise your office would be derelict.
After an 8-hour Judiciary Committee hearing, an amended bill was passed. During the hearing, Republican member Eric Cook voiced his displeasure at the changes.
This guts the bill completely, and this is the equivalent of a no vote on the underlying bill.
But later, the bill was deemed ineligible. Days later, the original language resurfaced in Cook's committee in a bill about Delta-8 THC.
Well, the language has taken a number of turns. It's kind of like playing Candyland with, for example, legislative amendments. And sometimes you get stuck in gumdrop swamp. Sometimes you end up being sent back to the beginning. And we've been looking at this language for a number of years.
Madeira is a professor of law and a Second Amendment expert. She has extensively studied state gun legislation and spoke out against the legislation during committee and stressed the Supreme Court's decision that all rights have limits. Everyone agrees on that, but not much more.
Because the Second Amendment right is a very important right, but yet at the same time involves items and tools that can implicate dangerous consequences, then I think that those responsibilities might be higher or different for the Second Amendment than for other constitutional rights.
Guy Relford is an attorney dedicated to the Second Amendment. He sees it differently.
A license or a permit is simply the process by which the government gives you permission to exercise a right you already have.
Those contradicting viewpoints have been the foundation of years-long debate. What, if any, check is justified before a person can carry a handgun? Most law enforcement personnel agree with Goodman and Egan. They argue the current system works well by quickly and correctly identifying individuals who aren't permitted to carry a handgun. If permitless carry is adopted, Egan and other officers say it'll change traffic stops for anyone driving with a handgun.
That's something that would have to be created. Which is going to cost money, time, and basically do the exact same thing that the permit system that we have right now does.
Under Indiana law, a distinction is made between handguns and long guns, like rifles or other military-style assault weapons. Anyone who is eligible to carry a handgun can carry those weapons without a permit, and proponents of permitless carry say traffic stops under the new law would mimic those stops.
What happens today? Somebody gets pulled over with an AK-47 in the backseat. Are you telling me law enforcement doesn't have the capacity to figure out whether that person is prohibited from possessing a firearm? Of course they are, and they know they are, and that's why they blow that out of proportion, because they've been dealing with long guns in vehicles or long guns, in people's possessions for decades.
Nearly everyone, Relford included, admitted tweaks or changes to Indiana law would be needed to give this information to officers on the street. No such system is now currently in place, and those against permitless carry say those fixes would need to occur before the bill, not after. But not all law enforcement agrees.
And so really the onus is on us to try to figure out processes to put in place so that we can identify them more quickly.
It appears enough members of the GOP's supermajority agree, despite Party Chair Kyle Hupfer writing in an op-ed last year, quote, Republicans will always back the blue, end quote. The superintendent of the Indiana State Police, appointed by then-Governor Mike Pence, said otherwise if this bill passes.
This is the problem with the supermajority. It stifles, prohibits, and oftentimes limits public debate. I sure hope you choose to show deference to law enforcement professionals that understand the magnitude and the frontline effects of this legislation rather than the possibility of getting reelected or unelected at the next primary.
While Goodman stopped short of using Carter's words, he said he wouldn't feel supported if the current language passes.
Citizens of Indiana who just want to exercise their constitutional right, and maybe if we can find some middle ground where we can do that, would probably be the best solution. But just to do away with it altogether, no, I don't feel like we would be supported.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Brock Turner.